know I try to be a good man. I always give it my best. But truth be told, someday I want to go to the wild, wild west.
And now, live from our smokehouse studio, it's time for Real Estate Jerky. All your real estate questions answered by our provocatively lean expert host, Ed Parcaut, MBA, veteran, and president of Lending for Living. And today's special expert guest, real estate advice you won't find anywhere else. Plenty to chew on, starting now.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here with my special guest, Bob Elliott. He currently is the supervisor for District 5 for San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors and the candidate running for U.S. representative race in our District 10. Bob, thank you so much for coming in today. And the primary's next week, so it's getting close, huh?
Yes, it is. It's less than a week away, and thank you very much for inviting me to come today. It's a pleasure to be here on your show.
Yeah, you don't have to suck up to me. You're good. Actually, what's amazing is, so a lot of people ask me why I have different people on the show, especially candidates running for different political, things that are coming up, the different races. And when you live in a community, you're buying into that community. So you want to know who is in your community, and when you live there, that's the most important thing. And so that's why we have this. Real Estate Jerky is all about helping people build personal wealth through home ownership. And it's important that when they do that, they buy into the community they live into. And so I appreciate you coming in today. I know you're busy, getting all this stuff done last minute for the primary. I'm sure you're everywhere, right?
Try to be as many places as possible.
Yeah. So there's one of my biggest things for this race coming up, and the next one is Prop 13. This is not in the script, but basically that's for me because Prop 13, you know about Prop 13, I assume.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to say your age, but basically people who've been around in the 70s or 80s understand what Prop 13 did for us. And the way that they're selling Prop 13 now, how it's going to benefit all the schools and everything, if you read what they put, it's like, that's an amazing program. We should vote yes for it. When in reality, you need to vote no for it. That's my opinion, because it's going to raise your property taxes. And eventually, over a 10-year, 15-year period, people are not going to be able to afford their home that they're in any longer because our taxes, the way California property appreciates, it's just going to affect you. You don't have to agree or disagree, but I don't know where your stance on that is.
No, I totally support the current Proposition 13. This new Proposition 13 that's on the ballot this time, I think it was named Proposition 13 to kind of confuse the issue there a little bit. But you're absolutely right. It will allow a massive amount of bonds to be issued,
right,
to allow increasing debt. It will allow school districts to increase their debt, which means that for years and years, we and our kids and grandkids will be paying the interest on that debt. And the way that some of that will be paid for is through increases in property taxes that will show up on your tax bill.
Right. And if you don't own a home, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. But if you ever go to own a home, then it's going to affect you. And that's what you need to protect yourself. What my problem is how they're figuring ways to name things or do certain things that what you don't want and you vote no for, it means actually yes. On our last, with the gas tax, a lot of people thought when they voted no, they got rid of it. In reality, they got to keep it.
Yes.
And I'm hearing that they're going to change, from some other people who've been on. This time it's a no. Next time it's going to be a yes. They're going to mess with it to try to get it passed. And that's right. And I want people to get out and vote, but you also have to read what you're voting for.
Exactly. You have to be sure what it is,
right?
What it means.
Right, exactly. And not also the candidates you're voting for. You need to know who they are, what they stand for, not just because it's one party or another party. It doesn't mean you have to stay in parties. You have to vote for who is the best candidate, period. That's, that's how I feel, because you never know who's going to be there.
Exactly. And I think that's the approach that voters should take. They should find a candidate that shares their views, whose positions most closely match theirs, and then get out there and support and vote for that candidate.
Right.
That way you get the best representation that you can.
Correct. Now, you've done a lot in the past. So you want to start, because I have some things. You were 2 terms, San Joaquin County Board of Supervisor, former member, Tracy City Council, past board chairman of Tracy Hospital Foundation, as a member, Tracy Manteca Chamber of Commerce, member, American Legion Post 172 and VFW Post 1537. And then board member, Give Every Child a Chance. You're a Rotarian. You're in the Elks and Lions Club. Did you have any time left over for your family? I mean, that's a lot going on there. And you're a veteran, like myself, but you are a retired veteran, colonel, way different than myself. I just put in my few years and left. So,
well, we certainly respect, and I certainly respect anyone who served our country, anyone who has taken that responsibility upon themselves to wear their nation's uniform. They certainly deserve the respect of all of our citizens in the nation, because it's only through the sacrifices of our veterans that we've been able to win and preserve the freedoms that we have today.
I have this urge to say go Navy for some reason. Beat Army. Sorry. As I told you before we got on, my son is in the Army. He's a medic, combat medic, and he just graduated from Airborne last week, so I wanted to give him a shout out. And what his mom doesn't know, he texted me today. He says, I'm thinking about being Special Forces, Green Beret. I'm like, I know what Green Beret is. I got one coming in, So, and I can say this on the radio because my wife won't listen to my show, so she won't know until it's too late. Because how moms are. They're so worried about it. And he's the baby, so, of course, everything is more, for her.
Well, of course, and mothers do worry. But I'm very proud to hear that your son has aspirations to become a Green Beret. I'm very proud of the time that I spent with Green Berets. They're absolutely the best soldiers anywhere in the world, bar none.
Better than SEALs?
Well, see, now SEALs are in the Navy.
Right, I know.
So we're.
I was in the Navy.
We're talking about Army.
Well, you were just saying the best in the whatever, so I'm just asking.
That's
so
true.
each
both,
force has their specialties, right?
Yes, they do. Each force has its own version of special operations forces.
Right. And they each do something totally different than the other ones. That's why they're there.
Yes, there is some overlap, but their focus is a little different.
And I was surprised that I saw Navy there, Marine Corps there, and Air Force there going through the Airborne.
Yes.
I did not realize that.
Right.
So.
Right. They run those courses for all branches of the service.
Yeah. And the other thing is, which most people don't realize, is they take off when they're going to jump from Georgia, and then they jump out of the airplane and land in Alabama.
Depending on where the drop zone is.
Right. The prior drop zone was in Alabama.
Yes.
Yeah. So enough about me and my. So what got you to? Let's go back in time and find out a little bit about you. All right. So you went to West Point, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you're a graduate of it?
Yes.
And then what got you to go to West Point? I mean, it takes a lot to want to go to West Point, and a lot of work.
Well, yes, it does. It's very competitive, as are all the service academies. I grew up on a farm in north central Kansas and earned an appointment to the military academy from there. I actually hadn't given it much thought until I started to get letters from their football office, and I found out later that my football coach had sent my name in response to some questionnaire. So one thing led to another. I earned an appointment to the military academy, graduated from West Point in the top 5% of my class.
Wow.
And was proud to serve my country for the next 30 years in the U.S. Army.
Let's go back to the football. Did you play football at West Point?
I did not play on the varsity team. I was on what they called the B squad.
No, I just was curious because you said your coach sent you in, and that's how. So
yes,
it's
yes.
And what's amazing is how the football teams. I'm just going to bring up of Navy and Army are so good, and there's nothing they can do afterwards. I mean, until just President Trump said that if you want to go into the pro, that you can now, right? That's what he did the last game. Oh, we got 1 minute for a break. So it's just how good those teams are, and they don't get to go out and pick them and all that kind of stuff. So
they are, and that makes recruiting difficult. But still, it's very competitive to get into the academies. So we do attract a high caliber of sports officials or sports participants.
All right. So before we get more in depth from there forward, we have a break. I know it's been so fast. First 10 minutes goes by really fast. So, hey, we'll be right back after this break. Listeners, if you have questions or comments, dial #250. You'll be prompted to say the keyword Real Estate Jerky. Again, that's pound 250. Say the key phrase Real Estate Jerky. You can also send us questions on Facebook or at radio@realestatejerky.com. Keep listening. Talk to you and get back. Look at that. They got it all right. So we come back.
Okay.
Where do you want to pick up? You want to pick up after you got out of the service? So, okay, I'm going to come back and I'll say, hey, so before the break, we're talking about your Army service. You did it for 30 years. What did you retired out. What did you do next?
Okay, actually, I'd like to cover just a little bit more of the Army career.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just say,
briefly.
Yeah, no problem. We have 12 minutes this time, another 12 minutes, and then 9 minutes. So
Okay.
we'll have a good 12 minutes to talk about what's going on with why you're running and all that. So we have plenty of time.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And I forgot to tell you, when I do this, it means 2 minutes. When I do this, it means 1 minute before we go to break.
I thought maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, it's not one of those camera things. Countdown from camera. And, yeah. So as an officer, is it harder to be a Green Beret, or is it about the same for each? Because it's all about athletic. I mean, just a quick question before you get in. It's because it's very athletic. You have to be really in shape, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So physically, it is the same, but the training that you receive is a little bit different, because the enlisted soldiers get very detailed, specific training in their particular specialty. The officers are expected to be generally familiar with all of those specialties, but not necessarily an expert in any one of them.
Well, that's why they have those enlisted to be the experts.
Yes.
Yeah. You're up with, all right. Ready when you are.
Real Estate Jerky is back on Power Talk 1360. Chew on that.
That's right, we're back. And if you're just tuning in, I'm Ed Parcaut, president of Lending for Living, and your host, along with my special guest, Bob Elliott, current supervisor for District 5 for the San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors and candidate running for U.S. Representative race in our District 10. Always give me all that stuff to add on. Before break, we were talking about your service in the Army, your 30 years, right? Then you retired. So any more that you want to add to that of your service?
Yes, thank you. Of course, as I said, I was extremely proud to serve with the Green Berets, absolute best soldiers anywhere in the world. I also served on a couple of assignments with diplomatic services in our embassies overseas in Tokyo, Japan, and Seoul, Korea. So I thought that gave an interesting counterbalance to the background and experience that I was able to achieve in while I was in the service. In conjunction with that service at our embassies, I had gone to the Naval Postgraduate School, earned a master's degree in national security affairs there, which qualified me then to pursue that additional specialty. So in that capacity, after having had the Green Beret service on one hand, I had the diplomatic service on the other, where it was necessary to interact with people from all types of backgrounds, languages, religions, points of view, opinions. And you had to interact not only with the host country where you are, I served in both Japan and Korea, but you had to interact with representatives from every other country that had representation there as well. So it was necessary to try to find some common ground with the folks you talked with. Otherwise, you could never get anything done. So I think that aspect of my military service was very valuable in terms of preparing me for what came later and what I'm attempting to do now.
Yeah, because you're able to talk to people,
yes.
right, and actually listen to them and find out what they want and meet their needs to a certain point and work together to get there.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't understand that part. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Negotiating and helping each other out.
Right.
All right, so you're running for District 10, right?
Yes.
What do you think is the number one issue that we have in that area that you think? I mean, because there's a lot of them.
Yes. So I would say that actually, if I may, I'll just add two.
You can add five. I don't really care. I think
the top two issues really are illegal immigration and homelessness, the rising numbers of homeless that we have.
And what can we do about that?
Well, okay.
I mean, you put it out there, so you added the second one, so I know I have to ask you about both.
All right. So in terms of the illegal immigration, I mean, we need immigration. We really do. Our farmers and businesses need workers, and there are people on the other side of the border who need work. So what we need to do first is secure our borders. That's a national security and a public safety issue, because that's the only way we can know who the people are that are coming across the borders and under what conditions they're coming. So to secure our borders is necessary in order to control some of those problems that come from not knowing who's crossing the borders, such as the gun running, the drug running, human trafficking, gang activity that crosses borders, and then the public health aspects of that. So it's essential that we secure our borders. Then to solve some of the problems related to that, we need to have an efficient guest worker program to allow those workers to come across and to allow a legal way for employers here to be able to make use of the skills that those people have. So I think those are the two components of the illegal immigration that are most important that need to be fixed. Secure the border, have an efficient guest worker program. In terms of homelessness, that's just become an increasing problem that has so many different facets to address. And that's one thing that has to be taken into consideration in trying to solve that problem, is that there are many different reasons for people to be homeless. Some folks have just had some unfortunate incident in their lives that make them temporarily unable to afford their rent or their mortgage payment. For them, a program to provide additional job training may be sufficient. But in general, what we need to do is we need to increase the amounts of shelter space that is available, because in order to provide help for people, we've got to get them off the streets. It's very difficult to help solve their problems while they're on the streets. For other folks, there are problems with substance abuse or mental health issues, and those needs need to be addressed separately. And then there is the criminal element that takes advantage of the homeless people, and that element that just doesn't want help. That's much harder to address that type of a problem. But one element that I think that has been missing in this whole homelessness approach has been the need to return to individual responsibility, individual accountability for their actions. Homeless people should still adhere to the norms of society that we expect people to adhere to. And if they don't obey the laws and do things that they should not be doing and that a civilized society should not accept, then there should be consequences for that. So we need to take all of those things into consideration, and we need to have cooperation at all levels of government, federal, state, and local, in order to make progress on that issue.
But one of the hard parts of what you just said is helping people, when they do something wrong, that they should abide by it and whatever. When you pass a law in California that if it's under $950 of a crime, you don't get arrested, it's really hard to enforce those little things that they do that you don't want them to do, right?
Yes, I think some of the policies have been counterproductive in that regard, and we need to take a relook at those.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize that, right? Then I watched a documentary on San Francisco and how they pass certain things, and they don't even go, what the police don't do now, because if they arrest them, they're out quicker than they can drop them off, right? So it's useless. So why would they want to go through? Well, the problem with that is then the area just gets worse. And I think the biggest problem with homeless is, again, back to where you said they want to get help. I don't know what the number is, but I've heard numbers up to 90% of the homeless, they just don't want help. They ask homeless people, do you need our assistance? They don't want the assistance. So how do you get rid of homeless people if they don't want to have assistance and get off the street? Right.
And that's where we need to have that accountability return, be brought back, because if there just needs to be consequences for unacceptable behavior. So there are many things that contribute to how that's developed over time, but just the attitude that, well, they're homeless, so we can let them do things that we wouldn't accept from others in our society, that just contributes to making the problem worse. So we need to add all of those things back into the equation there in terms of a total solution to the problem.
And again, back to homeless, because for me, that's been one of the biggest issues I've seen for years, right? Since I've been living here, is the homeless issue that's there. It hasn't gotten any better. It's gotten worse and not better. And then with the new laws, different laws change, I think it's just going to get worse. So you say we need to fix it. The question really is there an actual plan to fix that? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Give me your plan. I want to see what it is. I'm just, how can you make people do what they don't want to do when you have laws that don't make them? And you say change the policies. Well, it's really hard to change policies in California, as I'm finding out, the way that who's in charge right now. Right? I mean,
that's true. That's all very true, and that makes it much more difficult. But those are some things that will have to be done if we are going to try to find a solution to the problem.
Well, we need to find a solution, so we need to get these things done.
Yes.
So we need to look at who you're this year. Really need to look at who you're voting for in California. I have been to many different states. I was in Texas because my son went to AIT for his combat medic, and they have billboards. California's lost. Don't let it happen here in Texas. Vote, whatever, you know what I mean? It's huge. Everywhere's talking about it. And so I think it's really important that we're at that point in California history that we really need to do something about. If you don't like the way things are going, you need to stand up and make changes. Right?
Yes, you do. And you need to find a candidate who shares those views and support that candidate, because that's the only way you'll get positive change to occur.
Correct. All right, so we'll get off homelessness. Water rights. Are we having still issues with water rights in our area?
Oh, yes, we are. We've had this long-standing issue with various governors who want to establish some type of bypass of the Delta. Initially, it was the peripheral canal. That was 25 years ago or so. Then that was previous Governor Brown. Then Governor Brown's son, the predecessor to our current governor, wanted to do a twin tunnel. Now the current governor wants to do a single tunnel. Any type of tunnel is going to be devastating to the Delta and to our valley farming, because if the water is diverted from the Delta before it passes through, then the water that's in the Delta, and eventually the water that can get shipped to points south as well, becomes saltier because of the saltwater intrusion, siltier because of the water that hasn't passed through it, has not been able to flush it through the system, until that water eventually becomes useless for our agricultural economy here. And if it's useless for agriculture, it's also not what we need for our families and our businesses. So we need a portfolio of options that can actually contribute to making more water available during times when we have insufficient rainfall and snowfall to solve some of those problems. And I can go into some options there that I think would really help.
And I would like to hear them, but unfortunately we have a break coming up, so we'll go a little early so that we have time when we come back to go over those options, because I'd like to hear them. All right, let's head out to a break. I'm a veteran myself. I think it's important to support members of our military. This week I want to give a shout out to my son, Blake Parcaut, who is a combat medic who just graduated from Airborne, and he's actually in Alaska in processing right now. All right, so if you want to leave us any messages or contact us, hit pound 250, say the key phrase Real Estate Jerky, and we'll talk to you when we get back. All right, perfect. Right on, Doug. Okay, enough Green Beret.
I like this song.
Yeah. Actually, the best war movie is...
Say again?
The best war movie is Green Beret.
Oh, yes.
All right, so... water rights, what more you want to bring up about that? We'll come back and say, we were talking about water rights, you were talking about different things you can do. All right, so this segment, we have 12 more minutes here, all right?
Okay.
So we have a total of 21 minutes left.
Okay.
So besides the water, what next do you want to talk about?
Well, I would like to talk about the things that I think are important to accomplish in Congress.
Then that's what we'll come back. We were talking about water rights. You want to go in a little more detail, and then after that, let's talk about what, and then you can just go right into it. I don't have to ask you what.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Sure.
How are we doing in there?
We're doing good. You went 20 seconds over that last segment.
I'll just cut down my 1 minute at the end. Marlene, you need us to tell us anything?
Are we doing okay?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Okay. Good.
I try not to be too politically one way or the other. Because I don't want trying to, how and one of the issues I had was in the primary.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. You're doing great.
You, as a Republican, if you vote independent, right, because you don't want anybody to know what you vote, on the primary you can't vote for a Republican. You can vote for a Democrat,
Right.
but you can't vote for a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too bad that
California is that way.
Yeah.
I know. I registered as a libertarian one year and found out the hard way.
Yeah.
I went,
Well,
no.
Well,
wait,
I went,
what?
it should be, you can vote any way you want.
Yeah, but
Right.
Non-party. It should be, doesn't matter what party, you shouldn't even have to say what party you are. Just go in and vote for who you want. That's how it should be. This whole party politics is where we get into trouble. So let's move on.
but before you get completely ramped up.
So
You're doing good.
we're gonna come back and talk about the things you want to do about the water,
Yes.
and then he's gonna get into what he thinks you should do in Congress. The things he wants.
Beautiful. And I definitely want, in the last segment,
Man, we got 9 minutes.
be personal.
Oh,
Please.
okay.
Please, because that's your weakness, believe it or not. As personal as you are, pleasant, and it's, because Ted airs his laundry on a regular basis. We don't expect you to do that. But just,
What do you mean? What do you want him to do? How personal you want him to do?
just about your family and you're in Tracy and your investment in Tracy, and I think that's a
Okay.
very big advantage for you,
Okay.
a huge advantage, and you've been there a long time. And how did you get there? So it's
Right,
great you're
okay.
Green Beret, and it's great that you were from Kansas. How the heck did you get to Tracy?
Okay.
And that's the segue to do that with.
All right, last segment we'll get into.
That's it.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
and then because he did talk about how the fact that when he went to the Naval Academy and then he went on and he was able to negotiate, with different.
Yeah.
the other
But then bringing it home to, how do I fit in the picture?
Right.
Meaning me,
Right.
your
You.
constituency
Yes.
right here.
Yes. That's.
And that's,
right, yeah.
Yeah, because I know people going. There was an article on the Modesto Bee about people not living here going
Yes.
for District 10.
Yes.
You should address to a certain point. For one, it doesn't matter. You don't have to live in the district, and maybe you're saying just because I don't know if you want to bring up, just because I don't live here doesn't mean I don't understand the issues that are happening in District
Yeah.
10.
But I do live in the district.
And he does.
Where do you live?
He does. He lives in
Tracy.
Tracy.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's been in
Tracy's
Tracy
part
for
of the
years
district.
and very, very involved. And that's the part that, because there's so many issues.
Or then bring up why you should live in the district then if you don't live in the district.
I don't even want to make it political. I want to make it super relatable. Does that make
Right,
sense?
okay,
Super
sure.
relatable. Like you telling about your wife Debbie doing the talk show and
Yes.
Janeiro talk. People don't know that stuff.
Right.
And it does matter. So yes, stay where you're at with what you want to do in Congress.
Well,
and
we're
this
talking water
third-
first, water, and then
Yes.
and then the Congress.
And then that last segment, I wanted to wrap up with those relatable, how'd you get
Right.
there? Why
Okay.
Tracy?
Okay.
And why the Central Valley? I mean, for pity's
Yes.
sake, you've probably seen the world. I read your assignments and all that, took you all over.
Why did
And you
come?
land in the Central Valley. Yay,
Right.
Bob! Yay,
Yeah,
Bob!
why
You
here?
weren't
Why are
born
you
here,
Right.
you didn't work here, you didn't do the biggest parts of your career here. Why? And
Yes.
that's a sellable thing. That is
Okay.
a sellable thing. It really is. There.
Right. Okay.
All right, and if you come up with anything else, come in the last.
Okay.
Tell us.
Yeah.
We good?
Okay. Yes.
Ready when you are.
Leaving the bull behind. It's Real Estate Jerky.
And we're back. I'm with my guest, Bob Elliott, current supervisor, District 5 for the San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors and candidate running for U.S. Representative race in our District 10. And I'm your host, Ed Parcaut, president of Lending for Living. Bob, before the break, we were talking about, it's okay if I call you Bob, isn't it? I didn't
Sure.
ask. All right.
Sure.
Hey. Or Colonel, right? Whatever your first name is. I'm just kidding. we were talking about water, and then you said there's some things that you think we should do to ease the time that when we don't get enough rain. Like this year, right? We have hardly had any rain this year. When I was in Georgia, they have more rain than they can deal with right now. I mean, all the airborne graduations are getting pushed because there's so much rain they can't get their jumps in, right?
Right.
So what should we do here to help us?
All right, I think we should use common sense. I see that as my mission, is to take some common sense and responsibility to Washington, D.C. But when you look at water, we know there are going to be years when we have insufficient rainfall. So what we need to do is build more storage. If you have storage, that's just common sense. If you have storage, you can capture that water when you have more water than you need, and then you will have it in those times when you have insufficient rainfall and insufficient snowpack. So more storage. Back in 2014, there was a water bond that was passed that had in it $2.7 billion for storage. But to date, we don't have any more storage that has been built. So we need to do that. We also need to recharge the underground aquifers, because that's the source of the groundwater that comes when we pump water from our wells. We need to increase the use of recycled water. We need to encourage regional self-sufficiency, and that can include desalination. Down in San Diego, they have a large desalination plant there. That provides about 10% of the water that they would ordinarily have had to buy from the Metropolitan Water District. So that's 10% of their water that they don't have to depend on coming down from the north to provide. So regional self-sufficiency. And then just improvement of the levee system that we have now to allow that water to be transported efficiently. Just repair the levees we have now. Then, of course, we can continue to look for more efficient ways to use our water, of course. But if we do all of these things, we can actually take steps to increase the amount of water that is available in times when we have insufficient water.
And I mean, because I remember, we were through the drought and we were, limiting what we did with our water and all the usage for a year or whatever. And then there was so much rain that one year, and then that dam up north that had that spillway
Oroville.
issue, right? Oroville wasted so much water, more than what we saved during that year. It just was wasted by being pushed over, right? Because it was spillways broken. So what do so there was your 2.8 billion, you said, or how many?
2.7 billion was supposed to be for storage.
What'd they use it for?
Well, there have been, I'm not sure what the status of that money is. That's a good question, where is it? There have been some studies and some, environmental work done and preparatory measures. But so far, none of that storage has actually been built. So,
do you think it's because of all the, everybody's worried about, dams getting bigger, or, because it can be any type of storage. It doesn't have to be a larger dam or a larger this, right? Is there any other type of storage?
Well, sure. There are many different kinds. There could be a new storage facility. There could be an expansion of an existing facility. There could even be underground storage, and there can be storage that's not caused by damming up a river. It can be off-site storage that we could take that water and move it over into another storage area. There are all kinds of opportunities to provide for increased storage.
Yeah, because we definitely need it, because this year we're down, like I said, with water this year with rain and snowpack. Yes. I looked at my Facebook feed from a year ago at this time, and I had so much snow in our cabin, and it's like summertime up there right now. And so it's huge, and
yes.
we do need that, and that's the only way we're going to help. This water thing is to add more storage, like you're talking about.
Yes.
But I think I know where the money is. It's the same place where the lottery money is for the school system. It's being used somewhere else, I'm sure.
Very good possibility.
Because I guess the lottery, right? The winnings from that was supposed to help the school systems, right?
Yes.
But now they need Prop 13 money
yes.
to help the schools. So
right.
Something tells me there's an issue. It's not the money; it's some other issue. Right.
I think that's accurate. We need some oversight over that money to make sure that it does, in fact, get used for the purpose that it was collected for.
Right. And I'm, if it's going to a school and the school isn't working, right, there's an issue. Maybe we do something different with that school. Maybe let them have some other program so that they can go to different schools or some, there's some people have said that a lot of that money is going for schools in certain places that it's just the school isn't working, right? So let's not just focus on we got to have public school. Let's maybe look at some other things.
Sure.
All right. So you want to talk about what you want to do when you get into Congress?
Well, yes.
Is that a positive thing there for you?
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you very much. Yes, in Congress, I've touched on some of this already, but in Congress, I would support securing our borders. As I said, I think that's absolutely essential. We do need immigration, but we need to secure those borders. I would support protecting our Central Valley water rights, and because that is so essential for our agricultural industry. We need to have the water that we need for our families and farms. I would support keeping our neighborhoods safe and our nation's military strong. We need to have an absolutely first-class military with the latest technology, the latest weapons, because if we have a strong military, that is what is going to deter some countries who are not our friends from experimenting with how far they can push the envelope. So we need to have an absolutely first-class military. And I would oppose efforts to provide projects that result in financial waste, fiscal waste, and I would oppose efforts to increase our taxes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at where our economy's gone right now because of the decrease in taxes, it's amazing how strong our economy is right now.
Yes, and I think it's absolutely essential, too, to take measures to ensure that our economy remains robust. I'm very proud of the fact that in San Joaquin County, where I'm currently a county supervisor, during the time I've been there, we have brought in over 13,000 new jobs. And that's because we've had an economic policy, an economic incentive policy, and we've tried to create an environment where businesses and farms and ranches can flourish. And we need to continue to do that with our country as a whole.
Yeah, I think what people don't realize is when you have where like the tax rates are now, you actually get more tax money brought in, right?
Yes.
When you have high tax rates, people find ways to get around those tax rates, legally get around them because they're there. And so if it's where it is now, where people are okay paying the taxes, a lot of people in the lower tax bracket actually got more money back, didn't pay any taxes. So I think this is, for me, I've seen this is like the best I've ever seen it. And I'm 53, so I'll say that. So in the time I've been in business, whatever, this is the best I've ever seen it, right? I don't know who created it. We'll just leave it at that. But it's been very good, and I don't want it to stop. I want it to keep going.
Exactly. We've set several records in terms of economic performance, in terms of the joblessness rates. The unemployment rates have been the best they've been for 50 years in a series of select classes that have historically had difficulty in achieving as much success as they are doing now. Increased return of manufacturing jobs. Industries that had tried to seek tax havens overseas are now coming back to provide those jobs here. It's just been good for our economy all around.
Yeah, and I think it's very important. One of the issues that we didn't, and I'm sure you're aware of it, but everybody talks about affordability, right?
Yes.
We're in California. For as long as I remember, my dad complained back then how unaffordable California was, right? We're back in the 70s and the 80s, how unaffordable it was. Well, it's always been the fact that one of the issues we're having now is we haven't built enough homes recently, right? We had a downturn, and then no one built homes for up to 10 years. There was just not enough homes being built. That's the issue that's going on right now in our area is if you look at the homes being built, there's only hundreds of homes being built in our area. We need thousands more homes because, I mean, if you look at what Modesto's going up 10% a year because of lack of homes. That's huge.
Yes.
That's how it becomes unaffordable is when you don't have enough homes for people to go purchase so that bids up, supply and demand. Basically, the law of supply and demand. If there's not enough supply, great demand, prices go up. If it's the other way, prices went down like what we went through. So
yes, indeed. And some of the government policies actually contribute to that shortage. Such things as the suffocating aspect of the huge number of regulations that are added every year. That just puts a damper on business. It puts a damper on the expansion of business, on the creation of new businesses. We need to remove those regulatory handcuffs from our job creators to allow us to reach our full potential in that.
And I also think we need to look at the fees for building a house. We're currently in the process of building a house up in Twain Harte on 32 acres. Yeah. Anyway, the issue is I got to pay $13,000 for school fees. My kids aren't going to school there. You know what I mean? Why we're not in the town. Why are we paying? You know what I mean? The fees in certain counties have just gotten out of hand, and we need to look at those things too to make it to where you can afford to build homes, right? The new policies, everybody rushed to get their plans in before the end of the year because all the new regulations that are coming out to build a house now. You got to have solar, you got to have all this other stuff. It just puts so much cost involved.
Yes. All of those things add to the price of your home.
That's correct. And so a lot of that, I think, needs to be relooked at and see what we can do about that also.
Yes. We need to streamline where we can and reduce regulations where we can.
Yes, we do. And before I get off my soapbox, we got to go out to a break. Hey, we're heading out to a break. Let me remind you, you can find us pretty much everywhere. And if you want to find our podcast, it's on iHeartMedia.com as well as YouTube. You can Google us, Real Estate Jerky. You'll find us. Follow us on Facebook, and we'll be right back. Talk to you when we get back. All right, so our last segment's going to be probably right around 9 minutes. All right, so one of the things is I'll come back. We're really talking about different things. And then I'll say, how did you get to Tracy? There's your segment in, okay?
Okay.
And then you can say, well, when I got it. So, I mean, that's the question. When you retired, right? You went to work where? How did you do that? And then how did you pick Tracy? Why is that important to you? And that is part, a lot of people know Tracy's part of District 10, right?
Yes.
So let's let them understand that,
Right.
why it's important for you and to be part of this district.
Yes.
Well, are you good?
Okay. I think so.
What have we got, 9 minutes?
You got 9 minutes, 30 seconds.
Really? I picked up 20 seconds?
Say again?
I picked up 20 seconds, or is that part of my 1 minute at the end?
So that's not part of the 1 minute. So you have 9:30 of recording time, and then we add the 1 minute out.
All right, so we got 9 minutes 30, so take your
Okay.
time. Go over everything you want to go. All right.
Real Estate Jerky is back on Power Talk 1360. Chew on that.
That's right. We're back for the final segment of our show. I'm Ed Parcaut, president of Lending for Living, and I'm here with my guest, Bob Elliott. He is a candidate running for U.S. representative race in our District 10. Bob, we went to break. We were talking about a lot of stuff, right? So basically, about District 10, what's important in this area, talking about water, talking about a lot of things. My first question is, how did you get to this area? Because if I remember your background, you were retired out of the military. And then where did you go from there, and how did you get here? And why is it important for people to know who you are?
Well, thank you. Yes, so actually to describe how I ended up here, we have to go back a little bit into my military career there. But while I was assigned at the Naval Postgraduate School and the Defense Language Institute, where I studied Japanese.
Where was that at?
That was in Monterey, California. Our oldest daughter was in high school at the time, and she just fell in love with California. So when she graduated, we were in Japan at the time. When she graduated, she wanted to come back to California. So we sent her back here. She graduated from San Jose State and then stayed in the San Jose area. So when I retired, my wife and I decided we were going to retire in San Jose, even though at the time we were on the East Coast at the U.S. Special Operations Command. So it just so happened that General Electric had a business headquartered in San Jose. That was their nuclear energy business. So I went to work for GE in their nuclear energy business, served in a variety of positions there, project manager, program manager, eventually handling their GE international interface with GE here in the U.S. on their nuclear energy business. And that got us to California. But when it came time to build a home, the prices for what you could actually get for your home were not great in the San Jose area. So we expanded our search, came over to Tracy, and found a community where you could get a lot more for your money, a very nice community to live in, still had that small town feel, but a growing community. So we bought a home there and settled there. Later, GE moved their headquarters for their nuclear business to Wilmington, North Carolina. So it reminded me of being in the military again. We moved back to the East Coast to Wilmington, North Carolina. Decided we were too far away from our grandkids, so I found a job with GE Security in their homeland protection business, where I served as manager of global installation operations for a part of the company that installed explosive detection systems at airports around the world. And so those are the systems that check your bags before they get put on the airplane. And we moved back to California, moved back into Tracy, and we've been there ever since. And just have greatly enjoyed our time. We've gotten involved with the community. You mentioned some of the things that I've gotten involved in, various service clubs, American Legion, VFW, all of those various things. The Tracy Community Hospital as well, with their hospital foundation. Even the Sister City Association. I served as president of that for a while as well. So it's been a wonderful community to be involved in. My wife has also gotten really attached and become very involved in the Tracy community. In fact, she had a TV show of her own for a while where she conducted interviews on public service television. So that her show was was broadcast every week, and she greatly enjoyed doing that for about a 3-year period in there. So it's been great for us to be here in Tracy. And by the way, Tracy is part of 10th District. 10th District includes all of Stanislaus County and about the southern 1/3 of San Joaquin County. So Tracy, Manteca, Escalon, and Ripon are also included. And I think it's very important that you live in the district that you represent, because that's the way that you're most familiar with the issues that are important to the people that elect you to office, and that you are trying to represent and come up with policies that will make their lives more prosperous and better. As it stands right now, since I live in Tracy, I represent a portion of South San Joaquin County right now as a county supervisor. I already represent a good number of the people who are in 10th District and that I would represent in Congress. So I think I'm very familiar with their values, what they think is important, what they need to make their lives better and more prosperous.
Now, you said daughter. How many daughters do you have?
Oh, I have 3 daughters.
And how many grandkids do you have?
8 now.
Wow, 8 grandkids.
So ranging in age from elementary school all the way up to out of the house and on their own.
It's amazing how fast they grow, isn't it?
It certainly is, but grandkids are great. I mean, they're just fun.
They're the best. I have one already. You can play with them and you hand them back.
Exactly.
You spoil them and give them back.
I look at that as part of my job, to spoil them as much as I can while I'm spending time with them. But yes, I really enjoy that.
Now, are they all here locally, or are they?
No. Some of our grandkids are on the East Coast, in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
We have
like the humidity there. I went there for my son's boot camp in September in South Carolina. Oh man, the humidity and the heat. I just don't know how people deal with that. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes, no, that's quite all right. Well, actually, I remember going through airborne school as well on the East Coast, and I remember it was so hot and humid when we did that they actually set up a little outdoor shower system, and they would make us take periodic breaks and run us through the shower so that we wouldn't overheat while we were out there undergoing that training. But I have one daughter who lives over near Santa Cruz in Soquel, another daughter who lives up in Portland, Oregon now as well.
Wow. Yeah, my son, when he was airborne, they had, they'd jump, land, wet, go back, change clothes, do it all, had different, and they can only get jumped 3 times a day, I guess. That's the max.
Right.
So it was nice to see that. So really nice to get to know who you are and about your family and everything. we have a couple minutes left. What is there anything else you want to add that we haven't went over that you want to relook at or revisit before we go?
Well, I just want to say that, again, thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm happy to be able to discuss some of these issues with you. I think when you look at the what I bring to the table, I bring background and experience that is unmatched by any other candidate in this race. I am the only candidate who has actually led people in both military and civilian capacities. I am the only candidate who has diplomatic experience, foreign policy experience, and expertise. I have, as I said, already represent many of the people in the district, and it's just always been an honor to serve, whether it was in my decades of experience with leadership in the military or my current position now or in the private sector. Currently as an elected official, it is still an honor to serve in a different capacity. And one thing that I have never forgotten from the very beginning of my military career, and that is the values that were instilled in me from day one at the military academy as embodied by the West Point motto, the values of duty, honor, country. I think those are great values. They were great values to serve by. They continue to be great values to live by today, and those are values that I will take with me to Washington, D.C.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's really been nice to get to know you. I mean, we invited a lot of candidates to come on, and some want to come on, and some just can't get in the time period. I'm glad you actually found the time for us. I really appreciate it because I want to know who I'm going to be voting. The people who are on the ballot that I want to vote for. I want to get to know myself. And it's hard to get to know them unless you talk to them, right? And I really appreciate you coming in, talking to us today about this. And I hope our listeners appreciate that you did come in and they know who you are now. Again, I want to thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, thank you, Ed, for inviting me on your show. It's been a real pleasure to be here.
All right. Thank you so much.